What's up, folks, and welcome back to Dyce Reacts World. We are staying in London, England tonight. Oh yeah, we are going to be checking out what did the British ever do for us. I know they did quite a lot, but I don't know to what extent. So this way I'm going to find out. Very much excited to check this one out. We ain't going to waste no more time. We're just gonna get right into it, folks. We're gonna get right into it. Oh yeah.
What did the British, ever do for us scientifically?
Apart from the sanitation, the medicine, education, wine, public order, irrigation, roads, a fresh water system and public health, what have the Romans ever done for us?
Nowadays, our education system regards the British as brutal colonists who enslaved populations, subjugated the world. Out of roughly 200 countries in the world today, the Brits colonised, settled or invaded about 90% of them, which I think is fairly impressive, or at least I think the Romans would think it was impressive. But would we have been better off without those bastard Brits? Now, as it happens, they may have some redeeming features, if you look at their scientific contribution at least. Now, this is a slightly different video to normal, and I'm going to talk about the British scientific and technological achievements and inventions, even though I could mention trivial things like the British invention of some of the best countries in the world, like Australia, Canada, Singapore, New Zealand, America. Well, maybe not invented, but they were certainly highly influenced. Or even the only decent country in the Middle East, which is Israel, courtesy of Mr. Balfour, and many other countries that have a great deal to be proud of, such as Malaya, South Africa, Fiji, Kenya, Botswana, Sri Lanka, India, all wonderful British creations. But we're a science channel, and we're going to look at science. Now, the list is long of scientific achievements, and I'm only going to look at the really big ones and some of the more important ones. Let's start.
Inventions.
Let's start with transport and engines. So the British invented the railways, steel tracks, railway locomotives. In fact, wherever the British went, railways followed. So they put in railways in Germany, India, South America, and of course everybody copied that.
Did not know that.
Then we have the modern bicycle, initially called the Rover Safety Bicycle, apparently. Chain drive, caster steering and relatively small wheels, invented by the Rover Company. In fact, in Poland, the word for bicycle is Rover. And yes, it's the same company that makes Land Rovers. Now, the British obviously invented the first engines, which was the steam engine, and that broke us free from back-breaking animal and human-powered devices. Now, while the British were inventing the steam engine, they of course had to invent the piston, and more importantly, the piston ring that seals the piston, a truly remarkable technological invention which is even now being developed further. And the piston ring is the basis for petrol engines and diesel engines, in fact, virtually every engine. So no Brits, no engines. Next, they invented the first engine-powered ships, obviously steam-powered. Ships' propellers, steel ships, the steam turbine, initially for powering ships, but now it powers the...
I want to take a pause there. Just a few things that I've heard is already fun off the charts. That's amazing. Did not know that.
Steel ships, the steam turbine, initially for powering ships, but now it powers the generators in every coal electricity generating plant and every nuclear generating plant. So that's about 50% of all the electricity that's generated today, all courtesy of Mr. Parsons. Then we have the jet engine. Yes, the Germans independently invented it in the Second World War. The turboprop engine, invented by the Brits, the first turboprop aircraft. So if you don't fly in an airplane powered by a jet engine, which was largely due to the Brits, it's a turboprop airplane which was invented by the Brits. And of course, the turboprop is the basis of the gas turbine, which is used to generate another 20% of the world's electricity.
Wow.
We also have the modern car layout: front drive, transverse engine, independent suspension, CV joints on the front wheels. Before that, companies tried all sorts of arrangements. So, for example, the Germans famously had the engine and everything at the back, but since 1959, most cars use the Mini Minor equivalent. Ever been on a vehicle that uses steel wheels? Pretty uncomfortable. But don't worry, the Brits invented the pneumatic tyre. So it looks like the British have invented pretty much everything that runs on the road.
Yep.
They didn't invent the road, that's just about it.
Guys, I got goosebumps. I was about to say, it seems that the British control, when I'm in control, pretty much made everything that's on the road today. He almost like took it from my mouth. Yeah, like, that's amazing.
Well, actually they did. Tarmac roads, or tarmacadam, was invented by a Scot and a Welshman. Then we have steel bridges. And here's a very interesting one: the modern traffic roundabout in the 1960s. Now, you might think that roundabouts have been around since way before the 1960s, but the Brits had the inspired idea of changing the rules for the roundabout. In other words, yield to enter, which massively increases the efficiency of the roundabout. Then we have the cat's eye reflector. Caterpillar tracks, which the Brits invented just before they invented the tank. So there's much more we could talk about in terms of transport technology, but we must move on to other industrial and technological stuff. Now, of course, Britain famously started the Industrial Revolution in the 18th and 19th century, and it's debated why it started in the United Kingdom, but clearly there was something special going on that made that spark. And of course, it started in the textile and agricultural industry. In the textiles, they invented the flying shuttle, powered looms, the spinning mill for making threads. In fact, if you didn't have the Brits, you don't have the very fine modern clothing which we have now, which is also incredibly cheap compared with what it used to be. In the agricultural industries, there are all sorts of mechanical devices like the mechanical seed drill, the haymaking threshing machine, but also really important things like phosphate fertilizer production, selective breeding. But that's just the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. If you're going to have an Industrial Revolution, you need a big build buildings. And so the British gave us Portland cement, a revolutionary type of cement. Where would we be without it? Then we have things like steel boring machines, which led to the steel, the modern lathe, which is ubiquitous in metal cutting. Hyper-accurate machines for measuring things, the micrometer, for instance. You cannot have modern engineering unless you have hyperfine methods for measuring things. We have stainless steel, the production of polyethylene, very famous practice, plastic used in just about everything. The steel hammer for forging steel and making it much stronger. The Bessemer steel process, the first mass production of steel effectively. And then the mass production of glass using the now ubiquitous virtually tin flotation method. All right, let's go a little bit electrical. So the first long-distance communication cables were invented by the Brits, the coaxial cable. This was used for underwater cables to link the UK to America and other places. The first intercontinental communication, the birth of the internet in a sense. It was the first time that we could communicate all around the world.
What are you kidding me? I'm blown away, man. I don't know what to say. Like, wow. Like, being born in the modern era, and I was born in the 80s, so you know, it compared to like way in the past, I'm still gonna consider it modern because these times we're already getting some of the technology was already, many things was already being done, but where my country, some things were not there as yet. But like just looking at this video gives me a greater appreciation for where we were and where we are now, and just basically just the foundation of just the buildings, architecture. The Brits, I'm seeing that the Brits was it was very important, and now I'm just hearing about the communication, worldwide communication was first done. It was because of that. It was because of that. Those cables, which the Brits had part to play in. That is very amazing to me, very amazing, and that's the first time I'm hearing that. I haven't heard that as yet until now. So I have to go and double check that myself, because it's just fascinating that I'm only now hearing it, that in 2024. Wow. I'm going to take it back a bit.
Time that we could communicate all around the world. The telephone. Alexander Graham Bell was a Scotsman. The television, liquid crystal, cavity magnetron. You've never heard of the cavity? It's in your microwave, but probably more importantly, the first radars to a large extent used the cavity magnetron, which was a revolution. Then if we go a little bit medical, we've got CAT scanners.
Wow.
Ultrasound scanners. The first town to have chlorinated water.
What?
How about the first electronic programmable computer to crack German codes in the Second World War?
Wow.
Accurate navigation using highly accurate clocks, the chronometers, and the first workable atomic clock. Then we have the World Wide Web, a gas stove, tin cans, and a really big one. I know you've been wondering where I get to this one. An alarm clock that makes tea. Again, I could have added many, many more things, but let's go on to fundamental science, the stuff that all other science and technology actually depends upon. But before we do that, maybe just like and subscribe. Okay. How about the discovery of the proton, neutron, and electron? The three building blocks of, well, frankly, just about everything, all discovered by Brits. And the Brits also discovered the opposite of matter, which is antimatter, by Paul Dirac. And more recently, the last particle in the standard physics model of just about everything, the Higgs boson, which was proposed by Peter Biggs. Now let's go a little bit bigger, but not a great deal bigger. The atom, the model of the atom with a hard nucleus with the electrons flying around, was essentially discovered by the British. And I'm being a little bit loose there because there is a famous New Zealander involved with this. But frankly, in those days, Kiwis were basically...
Yes, but for some reason, I thought, for some reason, I thought they were, because I've heard most of the names that he mentioned, but sometimes maybe I've gotten a few things mixed up, because I thought they were Germans. For some reason, I don't know why. There's a mix-up, from my knowledge. Because I know when it comes to the science aspect of it, I know quite a lot of those individuals, but I just can't remember it was Brits, because many of those people that I've researched about were from Germany. Yes, and well, I'm wondering, were they born Brits, or I'm just kind of confused. I'm gonna let's continue this, because I'm a little bit confused.
But frankly, in those days, Kiwis were basically Brits. What about biology? Well, in my view, the two biggest advances in biology were both discovered by Brits. The first one is Charles Darwin's theory of evolution.
Yeah.
And then you have the discovery of the structure of DNA at Cambridge University. Fundamental molecular biology, of which the whole DNA revolution has been based on. And yes, I know Watson was an American and Wilkins was a Kiwi. Anyway, of course, the discovery of the structure meant this explosion in growth of the whole DNA industry, effectively, such as DNA fingerprinting, now invented by the Brits. Now let's go back to more basic, very fundamental and possibly more important medicine. We have antiseptics, antibiotics, vaccines, all three invented by Brits. But let's go back to physics.
Let's take a pause. I want to see exactly. Smallpox, pertussis. I don't know what's pertussis. Hit me up in the comments. I'm just hearing this, pertussis. And diphtheria. Never heard this one as well. Wow.
Antibiotics, vaccines, all three invented by Brits. But let's go back to physics now. So we have Newton's laws of motion, Newton's laws of gravity. Where would we be without Sir Isaac Newton? We essentially couldn't predict anything. Back onto the physics, the laws of optics and the way that radio waves travel, light, the laws of electromagnetic propagation in signals and wires, Scotsman James Clerk Maxwell's. You don't have any mobile phones or computers or communication cables without Maxwell. And then we have electromagnetic induction from Michael Faraday's. If you don't understand magnetic induction, there are no electric motors, there's no electric generators. Basically, the whole backbone of the electricity system, you owe it to the Brits.
Wow.
Or in mathematics, and there are a lot here, so I'm going to pick the really big one, which is the invention of calculus, yes. There was another guy called Leibniz who also invented it at the same time, but essentially Newtonian calculus is at the basis of a huge amount of advanced science of engineering. It's as fundamental as algebra and arithmetic. Now, this list is not complete. There are literally a zillion other things that the Brits have contributed to. Actually, there is just one more. The Flushing Loo. Now, obviously, much of what those British scientists did was based on other scientists from lots of other countries, and the Brits were just part of this magnificent thing which we call Western civilization. Of course, there were French and there were Germans, and the scientific development and advancement then spread to the United States and now to the Far East. But the contribution of the Brits were utterly fundamental on so many levels. Now, without those advancements, our lives would be short, harsh, and frankly, just bloody horrible. The world's population would still be about 1 billion, which is what it was in about 1800, rather than the roughly 8 billion that it is today without that wonderful science and technology. Now, if you add up all the bad things that the Brits may have done, you know, the Amritsar massacre, the Bengal famine, and all the other bad things that happened, albeit only occasionally considering the attitudes of the times. But even if you add all those up, it's not a drop in the bucket compared with what has been achieved and the lives that they've saved. How many lives, how many babies, children, were saved by antibiotics and antiseptics, clean water,
Vaccines.
or the uses of electricity, communications and transport? Famines are effectively a thing of the past because, well, for one reason, we can shift food around from one place to another very, very easily. Now, look, it turns out that I was born in England, and even though I'm an Aussie, so I am biased. But I don't think it makes sense to be proud of what your ancestors did or were unless there's some evidence that you carry on those ideas, values and traditions. But even if you don't measure up to those ancestors or other people's ancestors, it's just bad form not to appreciate what those people did for us. The contribution of the Brits was truly incredible, and we should all be grateful that they came along and did more than virtually any other group to pull humanity out of the appalling, difficult lives that existed before the 1800s. So, do you think the ledger for those bastard Brits, is it positive or negative?
I must say he did a fabulous job delivering that information there. I love it. He was so calm spirited, also very thoughtful. He also said it in a thought-provoking manner, which I love as well. And if you can tell, it got me all thinking. And the Brits have done amazing things, like more than I even thought, you know. And basically they are the foundation for modern society, because without electricity we ain't got modernization at all. This is the core. I'm using it right now. All the devices that I'm using is because of electricity. So I mean, everyone should be basically thanking the Brits on a daily basis, you know what I mean, for giving us this modernization and making it makes the world not necessarily a better place, but an easier place in terms of getting a lot of things done at a faster pace, and not so dreadful in terms of the amount of human resource you have to use and manpower you have to use to do things back in the past that we used to do back in the past, that our ancestors used to do, that could have really it surely took a toll on their bodies with some of those type of jobs they had to endure during times past, you know what I mean. So electricity is everything right now. When there's no electricity, everything's shut down, and you realize how quick modernization can be taken away without it. So shout out to the Brits, I must say. And what kind of caught me a little bit like confusing was some of those names. I thought they were from Germany, but when I was reading that, there were many scientists from Germany that left Germany during the war and fled to other countries and became citizens of those countries. So I'm wondering if he mentioned that they were Brits but actually came from Germany, because I'm a bit confused. I have to go back myself to see if some of the names that he mentioned were born in Germany but left at a point in time. I gotta check that out. This was really informative and really look at the Brits in a different light. Not that I had them in a negative light, but it just gave me something to really think about. And also how much that different cultures and different countries, that we use things from different countries, and even if like when you see some of the things that people use, especially to do negative things, maybe like war and stuff like that, they also need other countries to sell them those goods, those equipment, in order to do what they want to do. So it's almost like, when you really look at it, no country can really stand on its own to an extent, because you always need help from another country, because you can't produce everything that's needed to run, especially a modern society. You just can't. No one has the manpower and the ability to do it on their own. You still need help, and even if you do, you still have to try to create it in terms of when it comes to the amount that you need, in terms of the supply that is for the population that you have in your country. So yes, you might maybe be able to produce many of the necessities that you need, but you might not be able to do it at that level in terms of sustainment. So man, we all need each other. We all need each other. We all need each other. So shout out to the Brits. Shout out to you guys. Really enjoyed this. I'm certainly going to be checking out more from this this man. I just love his presentation and his demeanor and his calm spirited nature. Really love it. And guys, history was my favorite subject at school, and I'm telling you, it's not just a reaction. I'm really enjoying not just the video, but this entire channel. I never thought I would be able to actually do something like that. You know, that's what I do full time, you know, doing reactions and stuff. And it's kind of amazing that I'm able to do that, you know, and put it on the internet, and people are, you know, giving their feedbacks and their opinions and stuff. I never thought that would be possible, you know. And wow. Definitely I'm going to be looking up some of those names that I saw to see if I'm correct. Yes. If you want to see that long drawn outro, hit me up on Dyce Reacts, where I do music reactions. Oh yeah. This way I'm going to be making my exit. So until next time, peace out.